building of 5,000 thriving communities. That'll be 1 million housing units.
What is happening, best ever community? This is Matt Faircloth, and I am your brand new host for the best ever CRE show. We're excited for our guest today, Don Winter. Don is 17 years in this industry of real estate investing, and for the last 11 of which, he's been one of the 5,000 fastest growing companies by Inc. magazine. He's also closed over 30,000 real estate transactions, totaling over $10 billion. He's acquired more than 25,000 homes and apartment complexes, totaling over $5 billion. And his loan company has funded over $5 billion in loans. He's also the best-selling author of Building an Elite Organization and Building an Elite Career. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Don Winter. Don, how are you today?
I'm doing awesome, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you, man. I've known you for many years, and I think when we were both beginning our real estate experiences and everything like that, I've really looking forward to today's show because I've really admired what you've built at DLP. But what I want to begin to unpack with you here is you can't even call it a BHAG, right? Tony Robbins calls big, hairy, audacious goals, right? You've got a goal that some would say is not unattainable, whatever, but it's a really big one. And that is to create 1 million affordable housing units across the country. Could you unpack that for us a little bit about what inspired that, what it means to you, what's behind it? Let's delve into that a bit.
Yeah, so our big, hairy, audacious goal, as you said, is the full goal is to positively impact 100 million lives through the building of 5,000 thriving communities. That'll be 1 million housing units. And we expect we'll be one of the 100 largest private companies in America on the Forbes 100 largest private company list once we achieve those milestones. And so I'll start saying our core business is to invest in housing that is and will remain affordable for working families. And so the 1 million housing units that are affordable that you just mentioned, that was our goal. We've updated it that we want to impact 10 million lives. We want people living a part of what we call a thriving community life. And that's where people are living fully. And that means they're having opportunities for prosperity to achieve their goals in their lives, but they're also living a life of significance. So success with significance. Significance simply comes from helping other people, making a difference in the lives of other people. And so we think of our job in the world of owning, operating, and providing capital to others who invest in housing that is and remain affordable. We think of the affordability, which has never been greater need than today, as the starting point of our job. But then we think of that as once we do that, then it's our job to really impact the lives of our residents in a lot of ways above and beyond just providing housing. And certainly can dig more into what that means to us, but it's exciting to think about the scale and the growth. We're about 10% of the size of our goal today, and to think about the lives that we're going to get to affect and impact and the amount of housing that we're going to get to provide over these next few years.
Now, we have a mantra for my company is to transform lives through real estate at DeRosa. So very similar aligned goal. Help me, I'm curious if we have an alignment in this as well. Like, how does DLP Capital, how are you able to create that prosperity, that life significance for one of your residents in one of your communities? Give me some specifics on how you can create that, and how some of the best ever listeners that are inspired by this conversation could create that too.
Yeah, I'd say that the first element to create that is to have the goal to create that and to be intentional, make the effort around impacting the lives of residents. And I'll start with saying, if you don't have strong, hopefully you're listening, you do want to impact the lives of people and transform lives through real estate per your purpose there, Matt. But even if you didn't have that goal, even if you did say, I don't really care that much about it, and what I can tell you is by doing so, by having that focus on transforming lives, around providing housing that is affordable, but really helping people, as we call it, live fully, it's better for you and your investors. You'll actually increase profits by, in short, loving on your residents. And so again, for us, it starts with that we have housing that is and remain affordable. And this is workforce housing predominantly. These are $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month rents, depending on where we're in the country. We can dig into a whole lot about how do you do that in this market. But long story short, we're charging market rents. That's what we're charging. But we're very specific on what we're developing, what we're investing in, that the housing is affordable. Generally speaking, that means our rents are less than 30% of the area median income. But then from there, it's a focus around pouring into our residents. So it's doing things like having on-site, number one, loving on our employees who work for us. And we run a very faith-forward organization. We run an organization where we really pour into our employees, helping them live a thriving community life, as we call it, and helping them across the 8 areas of their lives. We call that faith, family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. And so when you have a group of employees, people on site who know that they're loved by their employer, who are cared about, who are given opportunities of prosperity, and encouraging them to do the same with the residents, that's the starting point. But then we have, in many of our properties, we have people's full-time job is ministry on site, providing support, running church services, Bible studies, prayer, building and bringing programming on site, whether that's around financial literacy, whether that's around parenting, a lot of different after-school programming for children. So we do a lot around education on site, on demand, remote, streamed out of our clubhouses. We just put a lot of efforts into figuring out what is it in this location that our residents need, and then bringing forward a lot of resources to support our residents. And we do a thing called Dream Ons at DLP, and we've been doing this for a long time. And it started with just for our employees, and then we expanded it into our residents. We're to Make-A-Wish, and we'll help somebody out if they've got a dream or a need. But sometimes it's simple things like they can't afford to pay their rent. And I'll just give you a really quick example that happened to me last Monday that maybe sums it up somewhat what our focus is. So I was on site at one of our communities with the manager, and we were going through some transition with the property and who she reported to and whatnot. And she's a really strong manager, and I wanted to make sure she knew that she was cared for and wasn't going to go anywhere. And she said to me, without me even asking, you know what, Don, you don't ever have to worry about me wanting to stay at DLP. She said, what sold it for me, and she'd only been with us, we'd only had this property maybe 8 or 9 months. What sold it for me is how the gentleman in our community named Sam, I found out through her that he had cancer, and he had to go through chemo and such, and we granted a dream to him. We provided him free rent, and that's really cool. It's really cool as the owner to be able to provide free rent and help this gentleman. But what she went on to tell me that I didn't know, but this is the kind of stories I get to be a part of all the time, which is so cool. She said Sam was not going to go into chemo. He was just going to let himself die. He didn't think he had anything to live for anymore. And he said the fact that somebody he had never met before wanted to help him, was willing to provide him with free housing, willing to provide him with support, gave him a reason to live. But then the really powerful thing is the people on site in that community then became aware through the Dream On, his situation, and people took him to doctor's appointments. People came in and cooked him food. People came and helped him clean his apartment. Really how you have a thriving community, a place where people are living fully, is you have residents serving residents. Anything we do as an organization should just be what gets the wheel started. It's residents serving residents. And the last note I'll just throw out there, and we can dig as deep as you want, is our focus is to keep our residents in our communities long term. Depending on what you look at, they say people move every 15 to 16 months in apartment communities in America today. Our target is to average 8-year occupancies. So we do almost all 2-year leases, almost all 2-year renewals, and we have about 80% renewals of residents we put into our properties at 2-year leases. People living there longer time, our staff being there longer term, people doing life and supporting each other are a few of the highlights.
So and just to highlight one thing and I want the best ever listeners to really hear this, right? This is not, and I know that there's a part of you that's doing this because it's the right thing to do. It is your calling to do right by other humans. I get that. I feel that. But it's also good business. And I know that's not why you're doing it at the forefront, the core, but it's very easy to sell these kinds of things to investors because at the end of the day, here's some of the numbers that Don just said, right? His goal is to retain a tenant for 8 years in a property. And you're correct. It's somewhere between 12 months to 18 to 24 months is a average tenant residency in an apartment community in middle income, call it like a blue collar workforce housing, right? For all the reasons that happens. And that. So if from an investment perspective, because it does go back to dollars and cents sometimes, not all the time, that's not what this is all about, but from a dollars and cents perspective, it does benefit the bottom line to do right by tenants and love on your tenants and everything like that. So my guess is, Don, it's very easy to enroll investors in this concept, not just because it feels good, but it's profitable too.
Yeah, exactly. Our way we run our capital, it's all in evergreen private REITs, and our main REIT that owns our existing communities, which is about 15,000 units in that fund, we've generated 19.47% return since inceptions annually net to investors, right? So the returns are there. And this, to your point, is a big part of why, is because of our approach to how we operate our communities and how we serve our residents. But then the fact that we certainly share with our investors, and it's a big part of the sales pitch to want to invest with us and want to stay invest with us, the difference we're making in the lives of investors. So, a couple crazy stats that surprise people. 94 to 95% of residents that live in apartment communities today in America are unchurched. So no matter what your religious beliefs are, that surprises most people to hear how few are part of a church community. 82% of all residents in America today say they're not connected to the local community they live in. 72% of all Americans, whether we own or rent, are disconnected from our jobs. So people are not connected to their work, not connected to their local community, not connected to a church community. And we wonder why we have a loneliness crisis in this country, why we have so many people unhappy, so many people addicted to various forms of medications and opioids and whatnot. It starts with connection. And my belief as a believer, it's a connection with the Lord most importantly, but connection to other people. And that's what we try to bring to our communities, and it increases people's happiness, it increases the value they're getting in their life, increases their productivity. It does so many amazing things that lead to people being able to pay their rent, being happier, doing less damage to the property, staying longer, etc.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it feels good, but it's also profitable too, right?